How does your career affect your life?
Most of us spend a minimum of 33% of our day working.
Fast forward out 10 years and tell me what your ideal life looks like. 95% of the time, the first answer is what someone's doing for work.
Picking your career. How do you go about this?
Choosing a career at 17, I feel like we're setting kids up for failure right away.
The purpose of modern day schooling is to produce good workers to fill the roles that the conglomerates and the industries need to be filled.
The advice I give to teenagers today is try everything. Get paid to try all the things.
I was looking at the financial implications of all of this, and I was like, I don't know if this quite makes sense.
I think it can be a really dangerous thing to not take into consideration how your career and your work life affects everything in your life.
Work has changed dramatically, and we now have introduced a whole host of issues health-wise because we've removed ourselves from the farm.
They spend their free time venting about how crappy their work is, rather than just celebrating for how great life is and the gratitude for where they're at. It brings a totally different demeanor.
Every career has that downside that they don't explain to you, that this is the actual downside of it, because then you might actually think about it differently.
If you don't like your 9 to 5 or you don't like the business you're running, what are you doing about it?
Welcome to the Good Life.
All right, everybody. Hey, welcome back. This is another episode of the Good Life Visual Audio Podcast. I got Stu here. Say what's up, Stu.
What's up, y'all?
Guys, bibbity boo, bibbity boo. Kobi is also here. Say what's up.
Hello, guys. What up, though? What up, though?
Apparently, it's the robot night. I'm not sure what it is.
And Martians, okay? We're including
robots and Martian night day. Whatever time you're listening to this is night for us right now. But either way, I'm Chris, guys. We're diving back into how to design your life with extraordinary health, wealth, and mindset. As always, find us everywhere that you listen and watch, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, right? Go there, share it with somebody. We have another good one for you today. Conversation hot off the presses. We were having this conversation pre-game right before us talking. This is going to be a good one. I'm going to toss it over to Stu so he can intro what we're talking about today, but I think this is going to really resonate with a lot of you. Go for it, Stu. You're in.
All right. Thank you, Chris. So today we had a couple different ideas we decided to go with, as he was talking about career, what we were just discussing here in the pregame chat, the three of us. So really, the area we're going to focus on is how does your career affect your life? There's going to be three different parts that we start picking at, and then we're just going to go off into a riff on it. First one is, picking your career. How do you go about this? I have a lot of people approach me on this. I do offer like single sessions to kind of help somebody get some direction. But there's so many facets that go into it. So we're going to go into picking your career, what the most popular careers are, and then the things they don't tell you about some of these popular careers. So, gentlemen, let's kind of start from the top. As far as picking your career, what were some of the things that you factored in when you were like, I'm going to be this when I grow up?
It's a good place to start. I'll dive in and kind of answer, but I think backtrack one step and give it a little context also, just how this applies to the good life. Right? You got to think about what it is that we're doing here, right? Again, health, wealth, mindset, right? Really designing your life and work, our career, what we choose to do for work is a large part of where we start in this good life process. It might not be maybe the best place to start, and that's why we're having the conversation, but it is the common place that we start as far as what's the career? What are you going to do for work? A lot of times when I'm having financial conversations with people, Stu, like you said, when you are, when people are coming to you and you're kind of doing those one-off sessions about, right, just career, a lot of times when people are coming to me and we're having a financial conversation, one of the questions I often ask people is fast forward out 10 years and tell me what your ideal life looks like. If wherever you're going to end up 10 years from now, what does it look like for you? And 95% of the time, maybe higher, but 95% of the time, the first answer is what someone's doing for work. That's the first thing. They're either telling me that their business is going to be booming by that time. They're going to tell me that they're not currently doing what they're doing at this time for work. They might not want to work at all. And that's the first thing that they say. Well, at least I'm not working, right? They say things like that. But work is the first thing that comes up when we're dreaming or thinking about that life for most people. And so that's why this conversation is important in general, right? It's important because it's a big part. And how we go about picking that career is important. A lot of this stuff is, we talk about it here on The Good Life, indoctrination from school, right? Picking that career, picking that major. It starts early, right? Picking what you're going to school for, picking what you're going to go do. For me, I went to a college prep school where it was almost like, foregone conclusion, like you're going to college, like absolutely, like there's no other way. So then you got to figure out the major. You got to figure out what you do. The way I picked culinary. I have a culinary degree. For those of you that don't know, some of you that are joining us, you might not even know I have a culinary degree, but I do. I have an associate's in culinary arts, a bachelor's in food service management. That was what I initially went to school for. How did I pick it? Because I saw that I like to cook and be in the kitchen with my mom. That was literally my decision. And there wasn't a lot else that kind of came into that. Then I just figured out the couple schools and then I went. But picking the career, how we choose the career, I think it also deals with like what we're exposed, what we're exposed to at that time. So that's my little 2 cents. Could be, what would you say on kind of like to frame up the conversation?
Yeah, I think you did a great job, Chris. And, I'll go ahead and take it from here and see if I can add a few cents to it. You know what I mean?
No.
Oh, man, we got to fix your gun, bro. We got to fix your gun.
It sounds like such a small
still
little
don't
laser
get better.
gun,
How?
It's not something I practice often. I just need more time to practice.
All right. You don't change, brother. You're perfect, just the way you are. God still loves you. So I think you framed it pretty. You said a couple key things, and one thing I'll add is this is extremely important in terms of our career because, guys, most of us spend a minimum of 33% of our day working or at our work, our career, whatever we call it, that minimum of 33, right? Most of us work at least 8 hours a day. Now, math isn't great, so you can go ahead and double check me on that. But a minimum of that, and most, if you're an entrepreneur, you probably spend way more than 8 hours a day, right? And if you have a career that is particularly demanding, whether you're in finance, you're an attorney, you're a doctor, you probably spend a lot more hours at work. So a huge percentage of our life is spent in our bed or working, right? So it's important that we talk about this in The Good Life because it applies pretty obviously. And one other thing I want to add to what you stated, Chris, is that work has changed dramatically over the years. There used to be a period of time where most of us were farmers. Right? We would get up, we would farm, and work actually fulfilled a huge part of not just what we needed to survive in terms of eating and feeding our family and providing for ourselves and living off of the land, but I would argue that it also played a huge part in our health, right? And for example, some of the things we point out all the time, which is making sure we get our sunlight energy. Well, there you go. Provided right there, built in, pre-packaged, shipped, ready to go, right? It provided us contact with earthing. Well, if you don't wear shoes, which most people didn't to farm in particular periods of time, you've got your connection to Mother Earth. You're out there connecting, grounding without all the research about grounding, right? And you're grounded in much better soil too. You were out there getting air, right? Fresh air. That's been recycled by plants and giving us everything we need. You're out there getting your movements. Guys, did you know that gardening is considered one of the best forms of exercises there is? Gardening actually might be number one. Right? You're bending, you're twisting, you're turning, you're going in, you're squatting, you're leaning, you're walking, you're grounded, you're doing all types of stuff. So gardening is one of the most recommended forms of movement, particularly as we get older. And someone say, well, what about walking? Well, walking is fantastic. Walking is number two, right? You can consider it number two. But with gardening, you're also making contact with earth and returning back to source in a way that you may not particularly do when you're walking. You're making contact with soil. Then you have meditation. If you've ever gardened before, if you've ever been on a farm before, there's a certain level of peace that you kind of get in being out there, and in our modern brain, we might get bored, right? We might, you ever seen the Disney Channel movie where the attorney is in the forest trying to take calls and getting all frazzled and stuff. So I wanted to frame it in that sense too, from the health perspective, and that work has changed dramatically. And we now have introduced a whole host of issues health-wise because we've removed ourselves from the farm. I used to have an uncle that would always say, time to go back to the farm. I never fully understood why he said that, but I'm going to assume he means this right here. Time to go back to the farm. It's time to stop being Mr. Hunchback McMickelson, right? With all of these issues being developed. And I don't know if that's the name or not. I just, it is what it is. But we're developing so many issues. Right now, I'm studying neuromuscular therapy, soft tissue pain, and 80% of our issue comes from the fact that we all sit at a desk and stare at a computer and do work all the time. Inside. No earth, no soil, no ground. So just want to put that out there and connect that. And, I want to toss that back to Stu before I talk about kind of how I chose my career path here a little bit.
Let's do it. I appreciate the reframe for both of you guys. I mean, I think a lot of people, at least traditionally, it seems to be a little different with our generation. Everything revolves around career. That's like almost the way that people look at it. Like my whole life should be about my career. And, as long as I'm making the money to provide, I'm good. Well, the thing is, are you aware mentally of how your career really affects the rest of your life? I think one of the most stereotypical things is when you have somebody that's dragging themselves to work over and over again. They hate going there. Maybe they hate the culture. Maybe it's toxic. Maybe it's not. Maybe they just don't want to be doing the thing that they're doing. Does that negativity seep into other areas of your life? I think most people you ask in those situations, they'd say absolutely, because they spend their free time venting about how crappy their work is rather than just celebrating for how great life is and the gratitude for where they're at. It brings a totally different demeanor. There's something very psychologically twisting about forcing yourself to do something for a third of your life every day that you don't like. I wonder where else you may make those judgment calls. Like, hey, I don't really want to do this, but man, I spend 8 hours of my day doing things I don't want to do. Why not do a little bit of more? Why not say yes to these plans I don't want to go to? Why not have a certain boundary in my romantic relationship that I'm not okay with? But hey, I don't like my relationship with work either. Why do I have to like all the things about my life? So I think it can be a really dangerous thing to not take into consideration how your career and your work life affects everything in your life. So I'm glad that we kind of touched on this, because if you don't like your 9 to 5 or you don't like the business you're running, what are you doing about it? So kind of coming from that place of why it's important. Let's dive in. Let's hear about some of these personal experiences. So like when it came to picking career, Chris, you mentioned that you chose culinary school originally because you just loved cooking it up with mom in the kitchen and it just felt like a natural transition for you. You're not still a full-time chef. What did you learn about the way that you approached the career search the first time versus like what kind of happened that took you into this new avenue?
Yeah. So first off, choosing a career at 17, like I feel like we're setting kids up for failure right away, right? Like who knows what they want to do at 17, at 18 when you're planning to go to school. So culinary being one of the first things that I thought about, I had no idea about anything of the industry. I'd never worked in a restaurant before going and choosing that career. I just, again, recreational, cooked around the house, saw food, enjoyed food, right? Understood that side of things. But like, I didn't work in a restaurant. I didn't know what it was like to be behind a bar or like manage people. I didn't know any of that stuff. So for me, it was like shot in the dark, right? Just, hey, I think I like this thing. Let me go do that. Lo and behold, literally first month in at school, because culinary is a whole different culinary arts programs are kind of like boot camps. They're kind of like some form of like military training to some degree, right? Very strict, very rigorous, very much so. Like, especially the school that I went to Johnson and Wales, like the only accredited universities for culinary arts. A lot of other things give our programs. This was a full-on degree. You can get a full 4 year in culinary. I only got 2, but like just very military. Just right. Got to make sure your jacket, your chef jacket, is ironed perfectly. A T in the back. No hair on your chin. I remember going at 18, I didn't have this facial hair at all, but I had like maybe a little bit on my chin. And every morning my chef would like be like, nope, you didn't shave close enough. Nope, you didn't shave close enough. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no hair on my face. And like, they would just get on you about things like that. So I'm learning those things as I'm going through school. Then I come out and I start working in restaurants. Whole new experience, right? Whole new experience. I don't know if anyone have either of you ever been a dishwasher at a restaurant before?
No.
It's like probably one of the worst positions to ever. Yeah, like just people throwing dirty plates at you, and they're no care and concern, just throwing, slopping stuff at you, just sliding things back. And I was maybe, I don't know, 19 when I'm working in the dish room. And I realized that like this position specifically wasn't going to be for me, right? Like definitely not this part. Like, I don't know what else. So first experience, I quit Johnny Rockets. Have you ever been to Johnny Rockets? Shout out Johnny Rockets.
Shout out, I quit.
Aventura Mall, Stu, right? Aventura Mall, yeah? Johnny Rockets. Yeah, quit first shift, like second shift in, something like that. Like just in the middle of the shift, was like, yeah, this ain't for me. Got out, wind up started working more on the front of the house, like did some back of the house stuff. But really the big things that you don't know is you don't understand the time that is spent in the restaurant. You don't understand how much actual time you spend there. When I now categorize or I tell people about the restaurant world, I say it's long nights, holidays, and weekends. That's really how you can categorize it. It's long nights, holidays, and weekends. You're overworked and underpaid at the essence of the business. At the essence of restaurants, lower margins, the owners, the staff, no one's taking home a bunch of money from a restaurant, right? Even successful restaurants, you have to build a bunch of them, but like in general, you're not taking home a ton. And so once you start learning that, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that there were lower margins. I was going to get paid a little bit less. I was going to be working 70 hours and having crap on me and smelling like garbage on the way out. Like I didn't know that was the life. I got introduced to it. And that right there was like, now I see there is a downside to this. You know, a lot of times we only see the upside when we're picking a career. It would be great to go be a chef in France. It would be great to go be an executive chef somewhere and feel like you have your name on a door and you can create restaurants and all types of things. But until you're in it, until you're there experiencing it, you really don't understand the downsides. And so I could go in all day about the downsides that I found in restaurants. But I think every career has this, right? Every career has that downside that they don't explain to you, that this is the actual downside of it, because then you might actually think about it differently. You might think about it differently. So that was a little bit of like my experience kind of getting into the restaurant world. I wound up transitioning out after only about 8 years or so, maybe 9 years. 8 years, about 7 or 8 years in the industry. I wound up transitioning out, but I had made my way through like every position in the restaurant world. I started back of the house. Like I said, I was a dishwasher. I quit. I did prep cook. I was a line cook. right? I ran a gourmet cafeteria inside of like a Johnson and Johnson building. So that was like 5-day corporate catering. So it was like a 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. type of deal. Then I jumped front of the house. I was a server, bartender, worked my way into management. Like I knew every position in the restaurant, and none of it over time was for me, right? I loved the people. Too many downsides. I low key almost became an alcoholic, but that's a different conversation, right? Anyone that's in restaurants.
Is it? Is it though? I don't know.
And Anthony Bourdain. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. Like construction pretty much drove me to that point. I was just tired of the hours, and man, I had to make a change. And I think identifying the fact that I was like, man, I really don't like my relationship with alcohol right now. I wonder why that is. Oh, that's right, because I hate my job. And then, okay, cool. So alcohol is not the problem. My job is. So let's get creative. So, in a conversation around how does your career affect your life, does it lead to poor choices in what you could be doing with your free time? I think the answer in at least 2 situations was a yes, or a potential yes, or an almost yes. But no, thanks for sharing on that.
And absolutely, and honestly, not even just disliking it, but the culture. That's the culture in restaurants, right? That's why I was going to mention Anthony Bourdain, like, killed himself, but like he has a book, Kitchen Confidential, right? Like the underworkings of what happens in the kitchen. Like most, back in the day, like the kitchen was for like the ex-felons and right, like the scum of the scum. They just understood. So like they're all drug addicts, like they all drink a bunch, they all do coke, they all smoke, they all like that. That's the culture of kitchens. But it's a family. It's like we're the degenerates, but we're going to love each other and we're going to all go drink and smoke and do all this stuff after work because that's our culture. You might love it, but what are you becoming in that culture, right? It might be fun, but what are you becoming in that culture? And I think that also has to play into it as well.
I think it's important that we put a pin in that conversation for just a little later in this episode, because that might be the key part of the episode that we bring in here, is that culture that is exposed to, you're exposed to, the stress that are exposed to. I've already talked about the health component on a more global macro scale of how we've shifted right over the decades, but now talking about the culture aspect of it as well. And I think this applies, whether we're talking about physicians and medical school students having the highest suicide rate of all groups, period. Whether we talk about, alcohol being quite an essential part of practice and law, whether we talk about, a high stress, drug use and being an essential part of high level, high ticket sales. Like, so we can talk about that here in a bit. And I think we should. But, I figured I'd like to give my little background too, if y'all don't mind. So my background is a little bit more of movement around, right? So first, I'm a high level guy. I always like to start high level. But I look at the entirety of life as we know it. We have 3 parts. We have your schooling years, which is all to set you up for a career, which is pretty much a third of your life, essentially, right? Depending on how long you go to school. Then you have your work years, right? Which is another kind of like thirds or 2/4 or whatever it is. Don't check my fractions here. Again, math, right? 2/4, half, 3 7/4, right? So, and then you have your third, kind of like your quote unquote retirement years or whatever, right? And by the way, another health note here. It's shown that within a few years of retirement, that's when most people kick the can, right? So it's really interesting how that works. But I bring this up to bring up one thing I've always talked about is the death of apprenticeship in favor of modern day schooling, which truly the purpose of modern day schooling is to produce good workers to fill the roles that the conglomerates and the industries need to be filled, right? They need those roles filled. So you don't go to school to go think to yourself for yourself. You don't go to school to go ahead and learn how to unlock your true God's spirit given within you, the power that's placed within you as an individual. You don't go to school to learn that stuff. You don't go to school to truly learn to be a leader, right? What school does is it really finds the kids who are already leaders and then elevates them from there. It doesn't teach kids how to be leaders, right? At all. It doesn't teach kids how to critically think. It finds kids who are already intelligent innately and then elevates them in ways, right? So I just got to put that in there before we keep going, because I'd be remiss if I don't touch on that stuff, because it's so freaking critical in how the thing is set up right now and gets us into our career. Lo and behold, so let me backtrack it. For me, in school, I was always a hard worker, but I always had a lot of responsibilities, right? I'm the oldest of 5. I had a lot on my plate. So I always kind of relied on my kind of natural ability, right? I always felt like I never quite was able to fully max out my ability because of just the circumstances as it was. But I did all right. I did okay. And I didn't really have, I remember telling my pops, I don't really want a traditional job. Regardless, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something else. I don't want a traditional job. I just know that part. And he was just like, he was cutting my hair. My dad's a barber. He's cutting my hair. He's like, what are you talking about, man? Like, don't make me work all this hard for you to come do something stupid now. All right. I think that's what he was thinking. He didn't quite say that. But people kind of always told me what I should do. Right? Had a great mind for history, loved it. I was always a very good public speaker. I was always, kind of played that type of role. So people are always like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna be a lawyer. He's gonna be a lawyer. He's gonna be a lawyer, or he's gonna be a politician." Blah 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 blah. And I kind of took that on. I thought it was kind of fun. Like, that seems fun, right? What you do, you argue, and the little that I knew, and we'll talk about what kids know about careers. The little that I knew, I was like, oh, that's great. I get to make a lot of money. I get to go ahead and debate and do things that seemed fun and enjoyable. I was in mock trial and all these other things. So I was like, oh, I could do this. This is fun. They don't tell you about the millions of pages of little tiny script that you got to deal with. But that's another day. We'll talk about that later on. So that's the route I was on for so long, until I graduated college, and I was an American Studies major. So it's a mix of economics, history, and sort of sociology, right? And quite frankly, there is no set route when you come out with something that's not heavy science based. Even if you go with the biological route, right? You're either going to medical school. If you go the engineering route, that seems to be a lot more set, right? Or you go kind of like the lawyer route, or you kind of like figure your way in something else, right? So I come out, and I come out of school, college, and I was like, I had a few options: continue to go to law school and move on and take the LSAT to do all of that. But then I look left, I look right. So that was option 1. Option 2 was to find something else to do. Option 3 was kind of like get a job. I look left, I look right. I'm like, Pops isn't going to pay for law school. Mom's isn't going to pay for law school. Oh, wait, how much does it cost? What? Oh, okay. So it didn't quite, I was stuck at that point because I wasn't sure. I was no longer set that that's what I wanted to do. And 2, I was looking at the financial implications of all of this, and I was like, I don't know if this quite makes sense. So I was kind of stuck. So at that point is when I went back to something I've always enjoyed, which is fitness. Started my own little training business, was training at the box gym. And then I ended up getting into teaching, right? Which I loved. I didn't like where I was teaching. I loved the art of teaching. I didn't like where I was teaching, but that's a story for another day. And that I went from that to sales, different types of sales, tech sales, financial tech sales. I went to real estate, and then I ended up getting out of that going into real estate with a small firm and then starting my training business, right? And here I am now. So it kind of took me all over. And quite frankly, I felt like the entire time I was kind of like figuring things out. My gut kind of knew what I wanted to do, but I never fully went with my gut. My head was telling me something else, and my heart was telling me something else, right? So I never fully made like a decision. All right. I just went along and got what I would call my masters in the streets. All right. I got my masters in the street because I learned from each decision. And this is why I bring up apprenticeship, because I learned from each one of those, but at a cost, right? At a cost. And that it was a little bit of inefficient use of time. In my opinion, there was a little bit of inefficient use of time. Like if I could have learned what I know quicker, I would have made slightly different decisions. Maybe not much, but slightly different decisions from there. So that was my path. Glad I didn't go to law school, though. I'll say that for sure. However, I think as we have it set up now, I think we're really not doing a great job to help kids succeed. Right. We're really not doing a great job to help kids succeed.
Agreed.
Amen. I think I always love touching on like the similarities and differences from our perspectives. I think the similarities here, obviously, all three of us chose very different. Like we've ended up in different careers than what we started with. Chris, you had this idea of what might be like a passion project that you love based on your experiences, and you went with cooking to start. I resonate a little bit more with Kobi's side, where it's like, man, these are the things that I'm good at. This is what people are saying I should be doing. Maybe I should be doing those things. Let me lean. It's a very like calculated, like you said, cerebral space. The heart was not really consulted on that. For me, math and science. So I went straight physics specifically. So everybody was like, dude, you got to be an engineer. I was like, well, I don't know what I want to do, so why not? Went into civil engineering. And you nailed it. Engineering has a lot less different tracks you can kind of go in, especially once you niche down specifically to something like civil. I could either be behind a computer doing AutoCAD all day, or I could be out in the field around equipment, around people, building. I'm a very social person, so naturally construction sucked me in. But what was very interesting was what happened with construction over the course of that time is I didn't get my master's in the streets, but I got my master's in project management and dealing with the personalities and the people behind all these different projects I stepped on. And it kind of really, really helped me go into this whole like business side of coaching, taking entrepreneurs to like going from a one-man show to actually managing people. Like, well, when you've seen various project sizes, it really helps. So it's kind of cool how some things fall into place over time. You touched on what if it could have been more efficient, or could it have been more efficient? And I always find those questions interesting. We never really know what the most efficient pathway would have been for us. We've already identified, I think the three of us are in agreement on this. We've already identified that traditional schooling is not the best place to figure out what you want to do for a career, let alone enhance your skills. So, you know, I look at how now I'm a coach around life and business. I don't know if there could have been a more efficient way. I will say my heart pulled me towards supporting on the therapy side pretty early into my 20s. Perhaps I could have gone that route, but then I'd have all the psychology degree, the debt. Would I even agree to handling everything with such red tape and regulations? I actually had a conversation with a client today who's debating on a therapist or a coach for what they're going through. So it's funny how we all have these different ways that we came about this. What's interesting is not a single one of us, when talking about career, have even mentioned money yet. That hasn't really been a priority for us. And obviously money is important, but you know, to anybody watching this, like you may think, okay, what career am I going to choose? And the first thing is like, what pays the most? Well, you know, we put together a couple of different options that we can segue in here shortly around, you know, the career paths that pay the most amount of money. But you may find that it's a very different experience than what you imagine. Chris touched on it a little bit with the restaurant side. For me, it was construction. Kobi seems to have some perspectives on law. So anything else you guys want to touch on here before we go into some of these specific examples on what they don't actually tell you about the career? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's. I'm excited to get into that. I will confess, money was part of my calculation in terms of what I was good at versus where I could make a good amount of money and going into law. Obviously, I didn't do that, right? But it was part of my calculation. I figured I could make more money as an entrepreneur, though. So that's the gamble I took, I guess. All right. And money was in the sense of like, how much debt am I going to have to get into to make this dream possibly come true? And at this point in my life, I think it's a calculation that, is it worth it? It might be for some, but not for all. I don't, we've had that conversation a few times. I think it might be for some. It's based on your individual situation, but not for all.
Yeah,
true.
Money was the reason I left the industry. It wasn't the reason I got in. It was the reason I left, though. It was one of the top reasons that I left. It's like I knew this wasn't going to get me to where I needed to go. Right, making 60 grand a year, working 70 hours a week, right, for a corporate restaurant as an AGM, and then all of a sudden, right, like even if I did get to that GM position, you're talking what, 90, 80, 85 to 110 entry, and it's like, and I'm stuck there for like 4, 5, 6 years. Like, I don't know if that's going to do it for me. And so money was a huge option or one of the main reasons that I chose to leave that. And then, quality of life. Those two things became big moving forward. I think we just have to find a way to have more realistic conversations with the youth, with kids about that, those things as well, right? Factoring in quality of life, factoring in money, factoring in what you're good at. Like the fact that you two said, you kind of went down that path of like, well, what am I good at? What if I did have those thoughts, which I wish I did have those thoughts at the time, but I really didn't. But if I did have those thoughts of what am I good at, this is the advice I give to teenagers today is try everything. Get paid to try all the things. See, we have the mindset that we go to school to get the degree, right, to do the thing. But if you're in high school, right, and this is my belief, if you're coming out of high school and you really just don't know, but you are saying like, man, I'm good at this, like go work in those things. Like you don't have to go right to school. School will be there for you. Unless you're just going for the experience, like school will be there. So what they don't tell us in society is that like that 18 to 24, you're the freest you're going to be in life, right? The 18 to 25 is the freest you're going to be. Like no responsibilities unless you chose to have a child early or something like that. But like in general, free as you're going to be. So test things out, taste a bunch of stuff. You got no kids, you got no place to be, you got nowhere to go. Like just try this thing for 6 months. You don't like it, go to the next thing. For 2 months, you don't like it, go to the next thing. Like do that 18 to 24 and don't wait to be miserable at 35 and then Kobi said something about golden handcuffs, right? Now you're in a career, golden handcuffs. Now your income's high. You're like, oh, I can't really leave the job because now I have a mortgage and I have kids and I have things. So now I'm kind of stuck in this place. Well, 18 to 25, you could have just bounced around and figured it out to get to the place where you're like, no, I understand. This is my skill set. This is what I'm good at. And this is where I want to be, money, quality of life, all that stuff. We wait too long because we think that we got to go down this one path to get there. And it doesn't always pan out that way. So I think we have to start having those conversations as well.
Dude, I love that.
If you're 18 to 25 and you're hearing this, comment wherever you're hearing this and let us know. If somebody told you that, would you actually have done it? Because I'm willing to bet, just thinking about the 18 to 25-year-olds I know and thinking about 18 to 25-year-old me, it doesn't even like, it's like, that doesn't even occur to you because it's like, wait, what do you mean? But especially if you go to the schools, high schools that we seem to have gone to, but I gotta go to college. But blah, 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 like they literally start to. I've had these conversations with 18 and 20, and they start to malfunction.
Yep.
Like what? But then I'm gonna be a bum. But then I'm gonna be blah 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 blah. That literally does not occur. So what you're saying is so simple from our perspective now, but I think it's real difficult to get that through to an 18 to 25-year-old in today's society, in today's system that's being programmed to think they have to go down this path.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, why do you think it's so difficult? And it's because that literally is the programming it's the only programming they have. When you go to school from 5 to 18 and you hear the same messages over and over again, that is your dominant programming. It's your dominant programming. It's 13 years of your life. So of course you're going to be like, oh, somebody told me something different. No, that doesn't make sense. I don't even.
That can't be right. All these other people said the exact opposite. And I think, in addition to the programming being there of you have to be certain, there's a stigma around uncertainty. And there seems to be a stigma around uncertainty in so many areas of life. And I can say, like, specifically, I mean, I even felt those in like relationships. Like, so are you going to marry her? Like, are you going to do all this? Is this going to happen? Like, you have to be certain all the time. Like, why is that? Like, why, as a society, are we not allowed to open up and say, I'm not ready to make this decision yet? That seems like that, honestly, like that, of course. But I think the fact that the sentence, I'm not ready to make that decision yet, not being verbalized more frequently, ages anywhere from like 15 to like 40 with some of the folks that I've worked with. When can we stop as parents, educators, influencers, whatever? When can we stop pushing that? Why can't trial and error actually happen? Some of these people that come to me for career, we explore different options that may work for them, and we come up with different ways they can go through trial and error so they can sink their teeth into this more. Could it be an internship? Could it be some type of apprenticeship? It's actually one of the reasons why I love coaching, is because you can actually find a master and apprentice, unlike so many other industries out there. And I think it's far more effective of an educational tool, as well as letting you know whether or not you're going to enjoy the ins and outs of that industry, not just the facade of what you think it's going to be. So to me, still getting this question or resistance around trial and error from people in their 20s and 30s, and sometimes even in their 40s, this trial and error it's going to give you the most information. No third party. I don't care what test you take. I don't care whatever. If you don't go out there and try different things so you can actually experience it, you're never going to know if you want to stick with it for a month, for 6 months, for a decade. Who cares? Why do we have to be certain at 18? I think it's ridiculous. And why is there still this pressure at late 20s to be certain? Who cares? Let go of that. Read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck and move on.
Yeah. I agree with all that. Let's hop to the what we're going to share on screen, and then touch on our experiences that we've had with each one of those, if at all.
Tight. Who is sharing?
Old man Chris.
Oh man, relax. Is it me? I didn't even know it was me.
Does he know how to work the share button?
What is it? Is it the share? What am I sharing?
The thing is though, you're super technologically cued in, so that's what's funny.
He is.
We're locked in. This is what I was sharing, which was from U.S. News, the 100 best jobs of 2022. Is that what we were talking about? This is what we were looking at?
Yeah.
Cool.
Because this is how a lot of students are picking jobs.
Literally. Google it. That's it. That's the way they're doing it. Google it. So here's what it says on here. It says no single job suits all of us, but here's some of the top ones. So number one down here, or I don't know, it says number one in 100 best jobs, information security analysts. Information security analysts. Projected jobs, 47,000. Median salary, 103,000. You need a bachelor's degree for that.
Let's go right there. First of all, the next step for this for a student, for somebody, is like Google what is information security analyst, right? Because let's pull you back behind these curtains. These job titles are made up. They're made up, right? Besides doctor, lawyer, engineer, which is why a lot of folks gravitate to those things because they know what it is. But think about how many, I was in tech sales, right? So in looking at how many different positions we hired for, it was literally like, okay, so what do we call this person? We have a task for them to do. We know that, but what do we call that person? And the thing to do is, and you know, I was instrumental in hiring a couple of folks because I was one of like the very early, I think the 7th or so employee and the head of, and at that time doing most of the sales department stuff. So we would look, okay, we would look at other companies and say, oh, okay, this is what they call their person. And they kind of do something like that. So we're hiring for this. All made up, all totally made up. So it's very important, especially as young folks or even folks that are maybe in confusion or confused by this, to really think about like beyond the ones that we've stamped and we know what they are, doctor, lawyer, engineer, that we know what that person kind of does. A lot of this stuff is kind of made up because it's new stuff happening all the time. And a bachelor's degree, not true. Most of the people I work with that were making quite a bit of money, minimum 80 grand, did not finish school, traditional 4-year school. They went to some coding boot camp. They graduated from some, and what they got, and this is what I tell folks, young folks in particular, is what is your skill? That's what's important. What skill? What can you do? Right? If I interview right now, what can you do, especially in this day and age? So information technology analyst, is very, very important that you understand that if you pick up a specific skill that you like, that you enjoy, especially in that world, right? So much more important than 4-year even computer science. You mastering one language will get you into a better position than you go into 4 years for computer science where you don't really know what it is that you do.
Yep. I literally just had this conversation with a pastor. We were talking about how things are switching. It's no longer going to be that degree that's needed. It's your skill set. Can you tell me exactly what you do? I will hire for skill set. I will not hire because you went to an institution anymore. I don't care what you did to get that degree. What I care about is, can you do the work I need you to do? Can you do the work that our company needs you to do? And if that means you went to a boot camp, if that means you went through our little training system online to get some skills, but if you can show me that you have these skills, good to go. It's kind of like way back in the day when like typewriters were a thing. They would literally just hire you if you typed a certain amount of words per minute. They didn't care about anything else. If you could type X amount of words per minute, you're in. You got the job. That's what we're moving towards. It's about the skill set, not about what title you want, what your degree is. Just like Kobi said, what can you do? What is your skill? And if we can start training for skills, people will have employment. People will have employment.
Do you think as a society we're actually moving that direction? Or do we think as perhaps the entrepreneurial side maybe we are? But I don't think we are moving in that direction.
The entrepreneurs are, because we get it.
Entrepreneurs are, agreed there.
Yeah.
But I think on the employee side, I think there's still that BS.
But I think what, and you know, I'm in the Bay Area, so maybe I a little bit more of this, but I think what we are moving towards for is like, those are the jobs that are hiring though. Like there is a shift. I don't know if it's a major cultural shift overall, but I know for a fact, if you want a job, right, that's the direction things are going in, right? What can you actually do? Prove it, and we'll hire you. Things are definitely moving in that direction. So if you take anything from, if you're listening to this and you're trying to figure that out, hop in, figure it out. Like look at those skill sets, right? Go onto Fiverr or whatever and look through. Those are skill sets, right? And pick one of them, go to a boot camp, find a company that's hiring for that. And that is probably your quickest path to a job. So yeah,
absolutely.
I get what you guys are both saying. And I agree. What's the next one?
Information security analyst was number 1. Number 2, nurse practitioner. Projected jobs, 114,000 almost. Median salary, 111. A lot of people going to school for nursing. I'll tell you that. A
We'll
lot of
always
people
have a job. You will
But if
always
you-
have a job because we live in a disease management society. We do not have healthcare. We have a disease management society. So you will always have a job. This one right here will always be one that exists.
Here's something real quick. Let me dive in just to look at this, what it says on this article. Again, the median salary is 111,000 with if you have a master's. If you have a master's, because I know nurses that don't make 111 because they don't have that education, right? So this is saying if you want to get to that income range as a nurse, then you need a master's, which means you're going to go to school and pay student loan debt to make $111,000 a year. Now, again, that might seem like a lot for a lot of people, but to get a master's degree, what does that cost you? What does that cost you? 100 easy to get the master's. How many years? 6 total, right? 7, 8, I'm not sure. To get to 100,000, you're going 8 years to get to 100,000 as a nurse. Like, is that ROI? You know what I mean? Like, these are the conversations I think we have to start debating a bit more.
You don't even know if you're going to like it.
That's right.
You have no idea because we don't know. Just like Kobi was getting at, and Chris with the apprenticeships versus trial and error. 7 years of school, all this debt, and you have never actually done it. You just had this idea of what it is. So I'm open invitation to like anybody that wants to figure it out. If you want to host some type of event, internships, apprentice program, like hit me up. I'd be happy to help you guys set that up because this is how we change the future. Is we actually give people an informed piece of what their career is going to look like. Thankfully, with engineering, we had some of those opportunities, and it's exactly why I didn't become an engineer. I should have spent more time on a job site. Maybe I wouldn't have spent 6 years in construction. But I have a client that is a nurse practitioner. She loves a lot of what she does, but she works a lot. It's incredibly stressful. It's very taxing to touch on the mental side and the health component that could be alluded to. You're going to go through a lot in that position. So
that's
collective
quality of life. Oh, go ahead, Kobi.
Oh yeah, to hit on that as well, quality of life. The collective health of doctors is shocking how bad the collective health is. Shocking.
You know how many overweight doctors there are? Have you ever been a doctor? Like, you see all these overweight doctors. It's like
it's shocking, bro.
So confusing.
It's shocking, and of course, weight is just a tertiary symptom, but level of stress. How many actually take their own life? Right? Shocking. I was talking to a teacher of mine who was telling about this top neurosurgeon killed himself. Why? Right? And that's actually not that uncommon. That's at the top. Like, I don't know if you can get in terms of pay and schooling and quote unquote cachet. I don't know how much higher you can go than a neurosurgeon. Right. So, yeah, there you go.
Cool. So keep going down this list. Well, physician assistant came in number 3. Again,
similar
master's degree, 115,000 in salary. Number 4, medical and health service manager. So again, this healthcare side of things, just like could be said, right? The system's not going away, right? It's not about healing people. This is not about healing people. So you're always going to have something. You're always going to have a job. There's always going to be some career in it. But a medical and health services manager, these are the professionals that are hiring the staff, that are managing the budgets, that are going through that process, running the facilities, those types of things. Median salary, 104 with a bachelor's degree. Number 5 on here says software developer. It's a big one. Software developer.
I want to touch base on one thing real quick from 2 of the top, I guess, 5 that we've talked about so far. The emphasis on this is a secure job. The nurse practitioner, some of these other things. Security is a big component for a lot of people. The 3 of us, probably not as much as most. We have a lot of trust there, whatever. We have faith, whatever. But the question everybody out there is, how much of security, like how much do you want that to be a part of your decision-making process? You know, like let's take relationships, for example. You won't always be attracted to the person or partner that is like most stable and secure from you if there's nothing about them that excites you, there's no passion. Although some people end up making decisions where they say sacrifice on some of the passion and they're stuck with somebody for a long time that maybe there's no spark. Maybe they find that out years down the road. This same type of thinking can be applied to your career. What is the balance of excitement and passion versus security that you want to bring to the table? So while it is important, like, folks, we have to have a balance here, or else you're going to have that midlife crisis and buy that Corvette because you don't like your job and you got all this extra money with it.
So many people base their decisions on security. Partially, again, we're not going to beat up on the parents here, but it's from the parents, right? I know so many people that are like, you know, a parental, the parent's job is to make sure they provide and protect their children. So they're naturally going to lead you down the safest path. That's just easiest to say. But when it comes to what you're choosing for your career, right, and what you're doing, some safety and security is not going to be the thing that's going to make you the most fulfilled and happy. It's not what's going to do it for you, because we need other things. However, that is a parent's job, is to say, hey, just go down this path because this will make sure at least you have this. At least you have a plan B. At least you'll never not have a job. At least, right? Like they give you the safest route.
At least.
We take that in. And then we start to make our decisions based off of their security, right? Their scarcity mindset, whatever that is. And that's what we start having problems with as we get older, because maybe we don't have that mindset or we want to switch it, but that's what it was rooted in. So absolutely. You want to keep looking at the list?
What else we got?
Where we at?
Maybe let's move through like the top 10 real quick.
Yeah, let's go through the last 10, the next 5. So we had software developer at number 5, coming in at 110 median salary. Data scientists use technology to glean insights from large amounts of data, right? So again, bachelor's degree, almost 100 grand as the median salary as a data scientist. Then you have financial.
You can literally learn to do that through an Excel certification.
I bet.
Promise.
Skill set, right? Number 7 is financial manager. Basically, who runs the finances of an organization. Those types of things are important. Median salary, 134,000 with a bachelor's degree. Number 8 is a statistician. Again, I don't know how many people are out there being a statistician, but again, it's using data. And what we are living in is a time where there's a ton of data and companies that need data processed and information on data. So statistician may be something that could be an opportunity for you. But again, looking at this, it says median salary, 92,000, education, a master's. So that means in order to get to 92,000, you got to have a master's in order to get somewhere around there to be a statistician. Number 9 is a lawyer. Median salary, 126 with a doctorate. How much schooling need? Yeah, how much?
3 years.
There we go. So that is lawyer number 9. And then number 10 says speech language pathologist. With a master's, you're getting to a median of $80,000. And then obviously physician came in.
Just you laughing about them is cracking me up.
because these are hilarious numbers to me. I know for some listening, and right, everybody's listening from different places. That may be life-changing money to you, right? That may be something that you're like, man, if I could just get to 80, my life would be better. Remember, I'm on the wealth side. I understand these conversations. I understand if you're only making $30,000, $40,000 a year right now, doubling your income would be life-changing, right? It'd be life-changing. But the amount, again, ROI, the amount of education, the amount of money that it takes in that career to get to 80,000 W2, by the way, W2. So that means 80,000 might be median. You're taking home 63, right? You're taking home 63 with a master's degree. You wonder why, right? We're not getting to where we need to be. But these were just, we wanted to highlight some of these for you guys. If there was something you wanted to add to those, we looked at those top 10. Anything you want to add to it?
I think real quick, median salary, for those that aren't familiar with the term, like you're not starting with those numbers. So
Right.
definitely something to keep in mind for those individuals that are out there trying to decide on a major and thinking, man, I'm gonna come out here making whatever it said on that screen. No, there's a ramp up process.
Absolutely.
Man, I think it could be, unless you have anything, I think the rapid fire might be the way to go here.
Let's make it happen.
Cool. So more specifically, guys, we're going to do a rapid fire on, what do they not actually tell you about some of the industries that the three of us have been in? So for me, for those that don't know, project management, construction management, that type of thing. Chris, restaurant industry. Kobi, you've got real estate, and you thought about going down the law route. Curious to hear
Sales.
10-4. Who wants to start? Let's give it a minute each. Let's let it all out.
Give it to Kobi.
Yeah. So, I'll start out industry, first and foremost with teaching. I think something that I didn't quite know is that it's you're going to be broke, and you're thinking like, oh yeah, you definitely knew that. But it's something that there is upward trajectory, but you got to be really passionate about your subject matter and be willing to continue to go up the rankings in that way, or be satisfied with where you are in terms of like, hey, you've got the summers off and you're going to be broke for a while, but you really enjoy what you do. And maybe you do something else. Sales, I've been in tech sales, working with young startups and educational sales or educational tech, ed tech, and fintech sales as an AE, account executive, as a sales rep. So, and you can make a lot of money in sales. In a business, I think the person with the most uncapped potential is the sales individual, right? So you can make a lot of money in sales, but there's a huge difference. Something I did not know is the difference between cold, warm, and hot makes a huge difference. And cold, what I mean is that cold, are you sourcing your own leads? Warm, are you getting leads that are coming in and you are taking them through the process? Or hot, where you're just basically responsible for making sure they have a good experience and walking through the pipeline to close the deal. Very, 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 very different type of sales. And and do you kill what you eat, or are you set up and fed? What I mean by that is you could be in a situation where you are literally sourcing your leads and you kill what you eat. And that's what happens mostly in real estate and some tech, but most tech is warm, right? So stuff they don't really tell you, right? And you got to make sure that that's all built in. You know kind of what you're going into. Being in a small startup tech sales situation is a lot different than being in a big tech sales situation. You either have the money or you have the deal, or you have nothing. Okay, when you come in, that's become really sexy these days, where you can just come in with no money, nothing, and you make all this money. Guys, that's usually not true. Can people make it happen? Absolutely, they can make it happen, but definitely not the case. Okay, so very, very important to do that. In my opinion, best if you come in with the money. If you're going into real estate, best if you come in with the money, and quite frankly, a good amount of it. Okay. Then where I am now, and what they don't tell you, which is entrepreneurship in the health space, where what I realized is layering is kind of the future, right? Layering. So layering education and experience in medicine and coaching with entrepreneurship. So developing new tech-based, virtual-based solutions to health issues with my education and medicine and coaching, because most of our issues in medicine now are going to be solved by lifestyle solutions, which require coaching. It's not just going to be solved by prescribing pills and prescribing surgery. It's going to be by coaching people as to how they can make different lifestyle changes, which is why I call myself a lifestyle designer, to get that in there. So layering that solution, and that's what we do over here at CTN, and that's what I've kind of found my space in currently.
Love it. I love it. I'll give you a quick cup, like just one of each. Restaurant world. What they don't tell you is when you go from hourly to salaried, you will take a pay cut. It is not actually an advancement in the restaurant world. Servers, bartenders, line cooks, staff that work in a restaurant oftentimes will make more money than the manager, supervisor, right? Because of the hours that you wind up working. When you break it down, you do not make the same amount of money. And a lot of times you think it's a step up because that's how we think in our careers. Like, oh, if I get into management, that means I'm better. Nope. Every time I took a step into management, I took a step down financially. I made more money as a server in the early stages than I did as a manager in the early stages, right? So understand that is a big thing. If I always tell people that are in restaurants or at hourlies in restaurant, the staff, if it's not going to be your life, do not get into management. If you don't want it to be your life, if that's not really where you're going, you don't want to own a restaurant, you don't want to be a GM, right? You don't want to go that direction. You just think this is going to be more money or like better hours or something. Don't do it. Stay hourly because you will take a pay cut and you will have more stress because now all of it's on you. The big part of going from hourly to manager is it's a completely different role. You think at the end of the day that because now you're a manager, that now people work for you. It's not the way it works. Once you get to management, you work for them. Now they come to you with all the problems. Now you have to accommodate them and you get paid less and you have more hours. So if it's not going to be your life, don't step into management. You might as well just stay hourly, figure out what else you want to do and go do that thing. That's for the restaurant side. The financial side, the financial industry, dirty little secret. It's not really a secret. It's not really dirty. Well, I guess a little bit. The financial industry is built to help wealthy people. The financial industry is built to help rich people. Eventually, you can have your heart in it all you want to. And people like me that push our way through to help the people that need the most help, you can find them. But in general, the industry is going to point you in the direction of helping the people that have the money. They have the means. They have what they need, right? And that is going to become that rat race again of how can you get the biggest client and and all of those things. And it takes the love out of it. It takes the fun out of it because now you're just seeking the big dog. If you can get into the financial industry and you can really find a way to help the people you want to help and still make money from it, golden. Otherwise, the industry is going to point you into the high net worth assets under management. This is how you make money. This is how you make the most money. And oftentimes, again, what comes with that is not really what you want out of your life. So that's what they don't tell you.
Well put. I think big commonality on the construction side is the exact same thing. Those getting paid hourly are making way more than those getting paid salary. It's always a very bitter transition when you recognize a superintendent is experiencing that after he was a trade and he was really, really getting after it. But there's the job security and all of a sudden that. So I'm glad you brought that one up. So for me, construction management, general contractor with some time spent as like a developmental role for younger engineers coming out of college. What they don't tell you about construction management, there is a lot of pressure, both by the culture as well as the necessity to be an asshole that babysits grown adults. That's not who I wanted to become. I explored different teams and projects and whatever. No matter what, some piece of that pressure was there. And that doesn't align with me, so I couldn't do it. Just simply could not do it. The other thing is alcoholism is high. There is so much stress, and it is presently, I think it's continuing to get less taboo, but presently very taboo to see anybody or open up about your stressful experience. It's a very like man's man type of world. And a lot of that I resonated with. A lot of it I did not. If you are stressed out, you are not encouraged to talk about it. There is no going to see a therapist. There is no opening up. This culture will suck you in. Not to mention a whole lot of traveling and not a lot of time spent with family, which is one of the reasons why I said goodbye. As far as working in the developmental space, either within a corporation or now for myself, you take on a lot of energies from your clients. I would imagine you guys experience some degree of this. When I step into somebody else's world and life experience, I am, especially because I'm very empathetic, I am exposing myself to all of the negative emotions that they are dealing with. You have to spend a lot of time if you're dealing with that space. And I think the same thing goes with therapists. You have to spend a lot of time focusing on yourself and being able to isolate your own energy and remain separate from the identities of your clients. So that I think is not spoken to very frequently on, especially like the mindset side. And then I think the final piece is owning a business. I'm in front of this laptop a lot. Most of my relationships are now through a laptop. That is very different than construction. It is not as glamorous to own a business as we think it is. I like it because I get to choose my destiny. I will either fail or success because of me and what I do. That is what I need in life. Many people may not relate to that. It is not the most glamorous thing in the world. I think you could potentially make it that way. I think your industry is specific, but I think that's probably the biggest thing that is left unaddressed is I'm in front of my laptop in my room a lot. But I love what I do, so it works out. But as far as all that movement and not getting like rounded posture and getting sunlight, I have to build that into my lifestyle. So
I hear that. And let me give one bonus one. I was just thinking as you were talking, I'll give you one bonus one for the restaurant side. You will see the worst in people. So if you don't like people already, do not go into the restaurant world because you will see the worst in people, meaning when people are hangry, right, you see all types of things. And if you're not prepared for that, you'll think all people are crazy. You don't like people, but it's really just the restaurant world. Because when people are really, really hungry and they really are irritated, like you'll see the worst in people. So another restaurant one.
If you don't like the phone, don't get into sales and don't get into real estate.
There we go. Take us out, man.
Guys, I think this was a great episode. This was needed for a lot of people, probably for us as well. I think we've got a lot of stuff to dish on there. We're going to have to do a part 2 of this for sure. But that's it for us today. If you guys like what you hear, make sure you subscribe, smash that like button, tune in next Monday for another great episode. And make sure you share this episode with somebody who would love or hate this episode because all press is good press. And until next time, keep living the good life. And we out of here, baby.
Welcome to the good life.